We've all been there, right? That heart-pounding moment when a tough question just hangs in the air, a negotiation gets really tense, and you can just feel the pressure building. Well, in this explainer, we're going to build a practical toolkit to help you go from freezing up to communicating with total confidence, especially when it matters most.
You know, this quote from the ancient Greek poet Archilochus really just nails it. It tells us that grace under pressure isn't some magical talent you're born with. It's a skill you build. The calmest, most articulate person in that high-stakes room, they're not lucky. They're almost always the most prepared, and that is a skill any of us can learn.
So what does this actually look like in the real world? Let's just drop ourselves into a scenario. Picture it. You're in a huge review meeting. All the numbers are up on the big screen. The CEO turns to you and the whole room just goes silent.
And there it is. The question lands like a ton of bricks. It's not just about the data, is it? No, it's a challenge. It's about your competence, your leadership, your team's work, and every single eye in that room is on you, just waiting.
This is the moment we all absolutely dread. Your mind goes completely blank, your heart starts racing. For our guy, Raj, the immediate gut reaction was to just freeze. That's your classic fight-or-flight response kicking in when you feel threatened. But what happens next? That's what really matters. This moment, it's a fork in the road. You can go down one path, the path of defense and reaction, or you can choose a totally different route, dialogue and partnership. Let's see exactly how Raj made that pivot.
See, Raj didn't stay frozen. He used a very specific physical toolkit. First, he took a breath. That simple act calms your whole nervous system. He adjusted his posture, stood a bit taller to project confidence. He lowered his voice to de-escalate the tension. He paused. And then, and this is the genius move, instead of defending himself, he reframed the whole thing with a question. What concerns you most? That one sentence instantly turns an interrogation into a collaboration.
And that's why this is all so incredibly important. These aren't just awkward conversations. How you handle the pressure in that board meeting, or in a big negotiation, or during a crisis, well, it can literally define your career and shape your reputation for years to come.
All right, so before we get into any more tactics, we have to start with the foundation. We have to start with your mindset, because everything that happens on the outside is a direct result of what's going on inside your head. The goal here is to choose your response, not just be a victim of your reaction.
When the pressure's on, you're faced with a choice between two mindsets. On one hand, you've got the reactive mind. It sees a threat and it just lashes out, gets defensive. But on the other side, you've got the responsive mind. It sees an opportunity to lead, to clarify, to connect. It's all about making that intentional choice, to focus on the goal, not the attack. And this brings us to a core truth about high-stakes communication. In that critical moment, your composure is actually more valuable than being immediately correct. A calm, measured response buys you credibility. It buys you the mental space to find the right answer, not just the fastest one.
Okay, so let's get really practical. When your mind is racing and feels out of control, you can use your body as an anchor. Think of this section as a kind of physical first aid kit for your brain.
These 5 steps are your go-to moves. First, just pause. Taking a breath or a sip of water buys you 2 or 3 precious seconds. It literally shifts your brain out of panic mode. Next, slow your speech down just a little. It makes you sound way more authoritative. Control your posture. Sit or stand up straight. It tells your brain and everyone else that you're in control. Lower your voice a touch. And finally, use neutral, collaborative language.
Okay, so you've used your body to calm your mind. You've bought yourself a few seconds of breathing room. Now, what do you actually say? This is your verbal playbook for turning what feels like a conflict into a real conversation.
This chart shows a really powerful idea. For every common pressure tactic, there's a prepared countermove. For that unexpected question that makes you freeze, you pause, and you mirror their language back to them to buy time. When you're being criticized, you name their emotion to de-escalate. In a tense negotiation that feels like a battle, you reframe with what-if questions and offer a few options to get things moving again.
Let's zoom in on one of the most powerful tools in this playbook, emotion labeling. There's some real brain science behind this. When you accurately name an emotion someone is feeling, it actually helps to calm down the emotional center of their brain. You're basically signaling, hey, I see you, I get it, and that creates a ton of psychological safety.
So in real life, it sounds like this. Instead of arguing with their frustration, you acknowledge it head-on. I sense some frustration, and then you pivot to curiosity. What impacts concerns you most? See how that simple move shifts the focus from blame to the actual underlying issue? It invites them to solve the problem with you.
Here's another super simple but absolute game-changing language shift. You know the word but? It just cancels out everything that came before it. It creates conflict. The phrase yes and, on the other hand, it validates their point and then creates space to add your own. It's a bridge, not a wall.
So it sounds like this. I hear your point, that's the validation part, and I'd like to explore another angle. This keeps the dialogue wide open, totally collaborative. You're not disagreeing, you're just expanding the conversation. It's an incredibly effective way to keep things moving forward without starting a fight.
So, okay, we've got the physical tools, we've got the verbal playbook, but how do you make all of this feel natural when you're in the heat of the moment? Well, it all comes back to that core idea we started with, preparation. This isn't about memorizing scripts, it's about rehearsing these techniques until they become second nature, until they become instinct.
Let's look at Sarah, a senior executive. When she got challenged aggressively by a board member, she didn't just survive the moment, she actually thrived in it. What did she do? She paused. She didn't react. She acknowledged his concern, she reframed the entire issue using data, and then she invited collaboration. She used the whole toolkit, and in doing so, she turned a potential enemy into a partner.
And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. That smooth, confident performance you see from leaders like Sarah, it's not improvised. It's the result of rehearsing these exact techniques, pausing, acknowledging, reframing over and over until they are automatic. She has fallen to the level of her excellent preparation.
So we'll end here. The next high-stakes moment in your career, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. The pressure is a guarantee. But now the tools are in your hands. The mindset, the physical anchors, the verbal playbook. So the real question isn't just how you'll prepare, but who you will choose to be in that moment.